Let's see. Let's get a chat window going, and I promise I will remind myself to look at it, and I won't leave you stranded talking to nobody, Parker. Let's see. Restream. That's right. Restreamchat.io. Actually, it's restream.io/chat. Howdy doody. How do you spell duty? Just make it D-U-T-Y. Howdy doody. Alright. That can go away. We're using no actual pens in this live stream. Tabmate is on. There is a Geb comic written, and I'm ready to start drawing. I'm replacing this rough art with finished art. Alrighty, so let's take the rough layer and go way down. Down, 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 down. And ditch. Ditch the dialogue. Alright, so I think I've got 4 panels, 4 out of the 8 panels, which can all feature the same background, and I'll just make slight changes to the characters, which is going to make this go a lot faster. Plus, one of the other 4 panels is ready-made, because I'm taking it from a past episode. This is me doing myself a favor. Lightening my workload, because when they get to LA proper, I'm going to be working a lot from photographs for backgrounds, and the production process is going to slow down. Alrighty, so we need a new layer. We're going to call it background sketch. Alright. So I'm just drawing the interior of the cockpit of the saucer, but let me call up Pinky's rendition of the saucer, just to have some visual reference. Pinky is the background artist. He lives on the other side of the world, and I only ever communicated with him via email and at the very beginning on Reddit. And he did some great work for us, and then he just stopped answering email. I might even owe him some money. It's been so long since I've heard from him. If that turns out to be the case, I will definitely come up with it. Open. All right. Oh, I'm glad you can't see me yawning. Where is it? No. No. How about the one carrying the seal? No, that's a smaller craft. It looks great, though. I just love his work. All right, so we're going to close that. File open. Backgrounds, cafeteria, conference room, hangar. Here we go. Yeah. All right. So this is the ship they're flying. Let's just zoom in on it. Now, zoomed in, it doesn't look so great. I mean, there's some weird, rough stuff going on, but the general design, the size of this front window, that's what I'm looking for. And I've been making these 2 pieces that define the outside more angular. So I'm going to have to create something that's a happy medium between what I've already drawn in previous strips and Pinky's work here. All right, and then the interior. I've got the steering wheel on the wrong side. But maybe I could use this interior. Let's try that. You know, there are videos where on YouTube where people scrutinize the comic pages, and they say, oh, here's where the artist cheated. He reused a drawing, or you can see he flipped a drawing here. It's like, fuck y'all. I'm here to tell a story and make some money. I'm not here to do penance. Making more work for myself when it's not necessary to tell the story, I don't see any virtue in it. Now let's flip this bad boy horizontally and resize it. And it constrains the proportions automatically. Thank you, Clip Studio Paint. I do appreciate that. All right, we're going to make it a little bigger. And okay, so I won't really be able to use I won't be able to use my original drawing at all, but that's fine. It was a super quick sketch, nothing to be cherished. All right, so opacity down on that. And do that. Oh. Invert, delete, there we go. All right, so might require me to change the position of the dialogue, but that's not a problem. Actually, let's just make all of this smaller. Okay, what I'm going to do... Oh, commercial. I'll not make you listen to a commercial, particularly when I'm not getting paid for it. All right. Skip. That is a hilarious scam. I've got a, video of birds and squirrels on for the cat. And so, this is something I would put on and then either leave my apartment entirely or go to a different room. I've just got it on for the cat if she wants to sit there and, watch the birds. I'm surely not the only one who uses these birds and squirrels videos that way. I think that's what they're for. So who are the advertisers paying to reach? My cat? I can tell you she doesn't get an allowance. She has no buying power at all. All right, here we are. Okay. Now, let's kill all of this stuff. And all this dashboard stuff. I am going to have to draw over this because it's kind of ragged, but still, this is saving me a buku time. Buku units. Start with that. I don't know what these brackets on the dash are supposed to be. I'm going to remove those too. What else? What else? What else? Okay. No. What if we grab that? Drag it over here. Nope. It's not really working. Well, we'll see what can be done. And Hula Girl. I think she needs to get flipped. What happened? What's happening here? Oh. There we go. Actually, we'll go back in there before I do any of that. All right. All right. Let's call this dashboard foreground. There's going to be a dashboard background as well, because the foreground is going to be blurry. It's going to be a selective depth of field thing going on here. And then the wheel itself, which is just about where Pix is going to be a bit smaller. I mean, it's going to be sharper. I mean, it's going to be in the same plane as her, and she's going to be in sharp focus, so that will be in sharp focus as well. So that's going to go on a different layer, actually. So let's just, oh, and let's make it a little smaller. Yeah, that's going to help us out. In fact, let's kind of level it. A little smaller still. And maybe even a little bit below, like that. Like that. Okay, well, that'll come later. The exact placement of that thing. In fact, let's copy it and then delete it. And we'll say nope, delete, paste. That didn't work. What's happening? All right, back. Okay. So that's the dashboard foreground. We've got this bit selected. Copy. Now, delete. Here, paste. Okay, there we go. We'll just call this steering yoke. Is it yoke or yolk? Let's look it up. All right. Sorry, just paused to read my email. My friend who was running for Office 1, as did everybody else in her slate. Oh, la, 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 la. So, close the Gmail inbox. And what are we doing? Steering. Let's spell steering correctly. That'll point us in the right direction. It's yoke. Y-O-K-E. Okay. Great. Gate. Oh, no, I gotta have that up and on the other monitor just in case anybody enters the chat. Gotta be able to see that. Alrighty. And whew, how about my coffee? Where is my coffee? All right. While I'm cooking my coffee, let me show you something. Let's go to Instagram. Refresh. Here's something I made using Procreate and Motion Leap on the iPad. Here, we'll get the sound going too. there. And there we are. Is the music copyright free? I assume so. It's built into the Motion Leap Pixaloop app that I used to create that. Alrighty. What are you up to, Ed? How's the world treating you? Alrighty. Let's see. Hoola. I was following a lynda.com course. In what? What are you learning? You know, that's where Dermot O'Connor has all of his animation tutorials. It's on lynda.com. Search engine optimization. Ugh, soul killer. You're getting schooled in how to prostrate yourself before the sacred algorithm. I've been listening to an audiobook called... I can't keep this drum roll up very long. All right, well. American Rule, How a Nation Conquers the World. I'd be interested to hear about that. Let's see. Hula. Just gonna sketch a little hula lady. I know as I was growing up, the term of art was hula girl, but they were all grown women for the most part. So hula girl. That's just sexist. Even a troglodyte like me can tell. That makes her look like she's got horns. There we go. Some more interesting shapes in her hair. And more definition to her arms and less less fat under her arms. Give her some hands, because Pinky's version, I couldn't quite figure out what he was suggesting there with the hands. And she needs much bigger hips. Hips, baby, hips. Those hula girls are not always the most slender. All right. Right. So I thought I was all alone in the stream yesterday, and I totally forgot about the chat, didn't look at it, and it turns out that Parker was there for a long time trying to get my attention, offering, little tidbits to start a conversation, and I just never responded until he was gone. Jared Yates Sexton. Oh, I think I know who that is, and if so, I'm not a fan. He's a guy who's made a big deal about Nazis in America, like, white people out in the countryside with their militia pretensions. He's really playing that angle up. If it's who I think it is, let me look it up. Jared Yates Sexton is an American author and political commentator from Linden, Indiana. He is an associate professor of the Department of Writing and Linguistics at the Georgia. Yeah, this is the guy. I'm not a fan, gotta tell you. Not a fan. Anyway. I watched him rant in a YouTube video to see if I would want to invest the time in listening to his audiobook. I think you would likely be repelled by his political stance. Yeah, I think you're right. He is not in the same tribe as you. No, he is a very orthodox blue triber. This hula girl is animated by a spirit that was born from the Lyft driver controversy. All the human... No. This hula girl predates the Lyft driver controversy as far as I know. She appeared on the dash of this spaceship a couple years ago. All the human chatter and attention actually invested her with spirit. Maybe all that psychic chatter has caused her to reappear in the comic, but this is not her first appearance. So. But no, I think your Yates dude there is doing the devil's work. Metaphorically speaking, of course. I'm not a literal believer in such things. Okay. Should we give her a butt? No, we're not going to give her a butt. The grass skirt will do its job and conceal her. Get just a little hint of legs. Down here is all. And then... Although I will agree with Professor Yates that the United States has definitely failed its people. Make her a Hawaiian, give her some dark hair. Oops. That's too light. Hear the children. I am part of a Zello conversation channel called Politically Charged Tea Talk. That's interesting. Say more about that. I get the politically charged. What's the tea talk? Is it just like afternoon tea or high tea or whatever? Oh, I've got the... That's what's going on. No, it's not what's going on. Okay, here's the deal. Turn that down. And delete that much. There we go, and the hula girl. The girl gets her darkish hair. Let's just do I've got that little loop from the Instagram post, that little loop of funky music just playing in my head. Boom, boom, okay. Big old brush like that. And she's not bald. She has hair above the flowers on her head as well. I wanted to call it a lei, but the lei is the one that goes around your neck. What's the one around the head? Garland? Garland of flowers? There we are. All right, now we go to a darker one. And let's select that as well. And remove this stuff. There we go. Ed writes, they have a formal debate every Sunday afternoon. Like a formal debate, like with time limits and a judge. I find it very engaging. They conform to the standard rules of debate. Oh, okay, great. It forces one to conform to a discipline. They don't do that speed and spread nonsense where they try to talk a million miles an hour so that they can make more arguments than their opponent speaking at a normal speed can refute in the given time. I really despise that. Tea-Talk is because the founder of it is British. Okay, gotcha. I think Tea-Talk is a British thing that is foreign to we Novus Mundians, New Worlders. In Greece, the one around the head is a laurel. Yeah, but what about Hawaii? It's made from bay leaves, the same thing people put in sauces and soups. Yes, I remember. Actually, what came to mind was Blazing Saddles, where the mayor is practicing his speech. I'd like to extend this laurel and hearty handshake to our new... Then comes a word that white people dare not speak ever again. Well, it's not right now. Certainly not in public. There we go. Look at that. Hair. I'm a little punchy right now, a little silly in my speech. I had a headache earlier. I took some acetaminophen, and the headache is gone, but I'm sure that the acetaminophen hasn't fixed anything. It's just made me insensitive to whatever pressure was tormenting me before. Alrighty. There's our hula girl. Almost. These lines in her skin don't make any sense to me, so let's just get rid of those. Get rid of that there. All right. We do all that. Then we merge the layers. Then we'll do it like this. All right. And because it's easier to draw a diagonal line than a horizontal one. There we are. I think I'm going to use a ruler. A curve ruler. Is there such a thing in real life? Well, there's a French curve, which which I never did learn how to use systematically anyway. Oh, I bet you can hear those kids. Let's see, a little darker. Yeah, there we go, except I went too far. Now that I'm using a ruler, there was no reason to tilt the canvas. Okay. A little halo there. Now, let's delete that ruler. And I have become partial to ibuprofen over acetaminophen. I shall now tell you why I was following the SEO foundation course at lynda.com. Excellent. Or as Mr. Burns would say, excellent. I actually did the gesture too, the tenting of the fingers. So I'm not going to blur it right now, actually, now that I think about it. Let's do the yoke. Put it down where it's supposed to go. Like there. All right. Back to the rough. It is because I am questing for IT skills that I can parlay into non-local revenue generation. Currently, my personal revenue requires me to be in my home locality, but I want to be able to generate revenue anywhere I can get onto the internet with my laptop. I have access to all the lynda.com courses for free via my library. Sweet! That is a not insubstantial sum of money. So I thought that I would pursue some of the IT course for a few hours every week. Good on you. Is all I can say. Why? I can say a great many things, but I choose not to at this time. Oh, let's go. All right. But I get you, Ed. You want to be able to travel and still make money. I want to do the same thing. My personal drawing setup right here is way too bulky for that. So I'm trying to pioneer a quicker, less, less gear heavy means of creating artwork so that I could do it while traveling. Rubber, good enough weather for outside recess today. Yes. Alexa, what's the temperature?
Right now, it's 36 degrees Fahrenheit. Enjoy your afternoon.
Thank you. Alrighty, so Ed continues. When you view the chat on Restream, the blue wrench does not show. No, it does not. I do not see a blue wrench. There are now 3 people who are holders of the blue wrench on this channel. Me, Rose, and Rubber. Well, it is currently 4:20 a.m. in the Philippines. So Rose is probably not going to be ever using her blue wrench powers. Good enough with it. Yep. Hi, Rubber. I bought some frankincense at an Iranian grocery store nearby. Rubber says, I use ibuprofen most of the time. I've heard weird things about Tylenol. One of the side effects of COVID is on and off headaches. So my wife says it's COVID every time we get one. For me to have COVID would require for me to have been in contact with a human being recently, which I have not. I did go vote yesterday, but I was masked. They were masked. The poll workers were behind a big sheet of plexiglass. I think it's extremely unlikely that I contracted COVID. Oh, no. Rubber says we had regular headaches a couple of months ago. Ed says, I bought some colchicine in Mexico. It's a medicine for gout that helps with cytokine storm phase of COVID-19. Colchicina in Spanish. Colchicina sounds Spanish. Anyway. Back to work. Work. Get stuff done. So you can submit an invoice and get paid. Alrighty. She doesn't have heavy eyebrows or eyelashes, but that's okay. We can deal with that later. And she's wearing the big headphones. This is way too detailed for the rough layer. That's all right. What do we got? What do we got? What do we got? In Mexico, they will sell you any drug at the pharmacy. You don't need to show a prescription. Yep. But I am not a prescription drug connoisseur, so I did not know what to buy. I only know about the recreational party drugs. That's rad. Where is this, Ed? Do you live in Mexico? Ed just got back from a trip to Mexico. He lives in Montreal, Canada. Quebec. All right, they really got it going out there, don't they? So, I think I can just, how do I want to do this? Put the steering wheel behind the dashboard. All right, now. You know, I'm doing okay here with the drawing, but I think I'm going to take a break and read something. Oh, silly me. What I wanted to do is save. And the thing I wanted to read is on my other computer, so let me go send it to myself. Stranger, cheapo, social media, invoice. Come on. All right, let's try this. Star. Nope. Oh God, I've forgotten the name already. Well, here we go. Let's read this. Peter Zion, The Ins and Outs of Vaccine Diplomacy, March 3rd. That's today, 2021. On March 2nd, the Biden administration announced a vaccine manufacturing partnership between two of the largest and most successful drug manufacturers in the United States, Johnson & Johnson and Merck. Less than a week previous, the U.S. FDA approved Johnson & Johnson's vaccine for emergency use in combating the COVID-19 virus. Its formula will now be produced both in Johnson & Johnson and Merck facilities. At present, neither firm has announced expansion schedules or delivery volumes. This is big. Of the 5 proven anti-COVID vaccine formulas that have been approved for use in the first world, only the Johnson & Johnson formula is refrigerator safe and easy to manufacture and a single-dose formula. As such, it can be used for inoculations at any facility worldwide that can handle any other vaccine formula. It is this formula that is capable of vaccinating the majority of the world's population against COVID, and with the Merck tie-up, I have little doubt the formula will be able to make good on its potential. Again, this is big. The question now becomes just how big? Some backstory. In the early days, the Biden administration, it is still the early days of the Biden administration, but anyway, in his early days, the Biden administration activated an option in the Trump administration's supply contracts with Pfizer and Moderna. Each will now provide the United States with at least 300 million doses by the end of July, providing enough vaccine for 300 million Americans. This alone is enough to cover 90% of the American population, children included. Johnson & Johnson by itself will kick in another 100 million by the end of June, and since the J&J formula is a single shot, that's enough for another 100 million people. Such figures suggest every adult in the United States who wants to get the vaccine will be able to get it by June 1st, and that, on demand, walk-in vaccinations will be available by mid-April. In fact, this is now the worst-case scenario for vaccine availability in the United States. The manufacturers continue to find ways to optimize their manufacturing. For example, Pfizer has increased their rate of production by more than 80% in January and February and has simplified its distribution by proving its formula can be stored in normal freezers as opposed to the dry ice ultra-cold setups it initially used. Such advances likely shaved 4 to 6 weeks off American vaccination schedules. There are also 2 other vaccine formulas, AstraZeneca and Novavax, that will likely contribute millions of doses, maybe tens of millions, to the effort, bringing the American schedule ever forward. Best yet, this new J&J Merck tie-up isn't included in the above prognostications. Despite what my vaccine optimism might suggest, vaccine manufacture isn't quick. It requires 2 to 3 months to grow the vaccine cultures in a vat, and then a few more weeks for testing and bottling. And that assumes the facilities are ready to go. The primary reason the Pfizer and Moderna formulas are moving along so quickly is that they began production last year before they even applied for FDA approval. The J&J Merck effort is only beginning now. We shouldn't expect to see first doses from the collaboration in the hands of medical professionals until June. Which raises some very interesting geopolitical possibilities. June 1st is when the United States will have tens of millions of surplus doses from its existing production contracts. The J&J Merck partnership will add at least 100 million doses on top of that, with many more to come throughout the summer as everyone's efforts continue to expand, while the bulk of the rest of the world will be starved of vaccine. While the bulk of the rest of the world will be starved of vaccine, the United States will have a glut. Since the U.S. government is the entity that contracted for the doses, it will be up to the Biden administration to decide where those doses go. The term you've been looking for is vaccine diplomacy. It comes at a fortuitous time. The United States has backed away from the world. This isn't a Clinton thing, or a W. Bush thing, or an Obama thing, or a Trump thing, or a Biden thing, but instead a United States thing. The American people lost interest in playing a constructive role in the world 3 decades ago. And America's political leadership has molded itself around that fact. Trump may have been intrinsically and publicly hostile to all things international, but Biden is only different in tone. Biden's Buy American program is actually more anti-globalization than Trump's America First rhetoric, as it is an express violation of most of America's international trade commitments. Team Biden says it wants to reestablish America's global leadership, but it plans to do so without any troops or money. Sorry, but that's not how it works. Which makes these possibilities for vaccine diplomacy wildly interesting. The United States has no responsibility to provide COVID vaccines to the world. It will distribute them, but it will want something in return. Let's begin with the obvious decisions. Canada. Like the United States, the Canadian government contracted for more doses than it needed from multiple vaccine developers, working from the wise theory that not all would pan out. Like the United States, several of the firms Canada chose did work out, suggesting a similar vaccine glut. But unlike the United States, no vaccines are manufactured in Canada, so Canadians have had to wait. Not much longer. Whether it is because the United States finishes its vaccination program and so frees up manufacturing capacity for its northern neighbor, or because the Biden administration chooses to apply vaccine diplomacy to its closest friend, Canada will get all the vaccine it needs in June. Considering the Canadian health system is far superior to America's, mass vaccination in Canada should be completed by July 1st. Mexico. America's southern neighbor lacks both America's manufacturing capacity and Canada's health system. It was never going to be among the first countries to achieve mass vaccination. It left its own devices, if left to its own devices, that is. Aha. It was never going to be among the first countries to achieve mass vaccination. If left to its own devices, that is. In reality, Mexico will be second in line. Mexico is one of America's two largest trading partners. Based on how you run the math, Mexicans are America's second or third largest ethnic group, depending on how one defines Mexican. The Mexican-American border is the most crossed, legally, in the world, no matter how you count. Completely ignoring health and ethics and good neighborliness and focusing purely on self-interest, Mexico is the obvious second choice for American vaccine diplomacy. Vaccination there will take longer than Canada. After all, there are 130 million people in Mexico to Canada's 35 million, and the health system isn't nearly as advanced. But I'd be surprised if the Mexican effort wasn't functionally completed, and with it, the broader North American economy recovered before August 1st. After that, the choices become less obvious. The very nature of the vaccines and coronavirus limits the options. China and Russia are out. In addition to the pair becoming increasingly hostile to all things American, both have their own vaccines and are not interested in any sort of quid pro quo with Washington. Many of the poor portions of the world are out. In part, it's an issue of economics and strategy. It's harsh to say, but there is only so much that Bolivia or Niger can offer the United States. But just as important, it is about COVID itself. The people the virus tends to kill are over 65. The world's poorer countries, not all that many live that long. That hardly means coronavirus is something that can take in stride, but the mass casualties we've seen in the advanced world just don't occur within the younger aged populations of the poorer parts of the developing world. And the niggling logistical issues remain. While the J&J formula can be distributed easily, it is the only one that can be, and even J&J needs a refrigerator cold chain. India is probably out as well, not because an Indo-American tie-up wouldn't be a solid idea, but because India has its own vaccine manufacturing capacity. In fact, India has its own vaccine diplomacy program that already stretches from Mongolia to Myanmar. If you have problems with China, you can probably count on New Delhi to help out with vaccines. That still leaves us with just under half the global population that are potential American vaccine diplomacy targets. I can't tell you which countries Team Biden will pick in which order. That will, in part, be determined by the new administration's evolving priorities, as well as the broader geopolitical environment in the last half of 2021. What I can do is lay out the options from cleanest to messiest. The Five Eyes. Back in the 1950s, the Americans worked with the Brits, Canadians, Australians, and New Zealanders to build a globe-spanning intelligence collection system. We know that today as the Five Eyes. The five Anglo nations aren't simply friends and allies, they're family. And it would stretch the mind for all not to be included in some degree of vaccine sharing. It would also be easy. After all, the UK is taking care of itself, and Canada is already first on America's list. Combined, there are only 30 million Aussies and Kiwis. Supplying sufficient doses would be child's play. Japan and South Korea. Allies? Check. First world countries? Check. Major trading partners? Check. Excellent health infrastructure? Check. Wildly insufficient domestic vaccine manufacturing capacity? Check. Both the Japanese and Koreans loathed Donald Trump's efforts to wring economic and security concessions out of them, but in the end, both had to give in. Biden has indicated zero inclinations to give back anything Trump secured. If anything, the Biden administration will demand more. Vaccine diplomacy is an excellent way to either secure more concessions in specific or salve the relationships in general. Southeast Asia. There's a brewing competition between China and the United States for influence throughout the region. And I would say the U.S. is losing, but, I'm not the geopolitical strategic analyst. There's a brewing competition between China and the United States for influence throughout the region, making a broadside vaccination program a useful tool. The problems are complexity and scope. There are some 650 million people in the region. It is also politically and strategically messy. A recent military coup in Myanmar and an aging military coup in Thailand suggest diplomatic complications. Singapore is wildly rich and can take care of itself. Indonesia is huge and poor and lacks basic infrastructure for upwards of 1/3 of its population. Laos and Cambodia are de facto Chinese satellites. Malaysia is stuffy. The smartest target might prove to be the Philippines. Manila gets petulant from time to time. If the United States doesn't toss the Philippines sufficient financial bones, vaccines could well scratch the itch for years to come. Colombia and Chile. This pair, courtesy of long-time friendly trade and political relations, are the only South American countries to make the list. Vaccine diplomacy would be a cheap and easy way to firm up ties. It would also underline the broader region that there are indeed benefits to being part of America's friends and family plan. I think there's a word missing there. I think it should be, it would also underline to the broader region that there are indeed benefits to being part of America's friends and family plan. Taiwan. The Biden administration is doubling down on every anti-China effort the Trump administration started. On the same day of the J&J Merck announcement, the new U.S. Trade Representative, Catherine Tai, announced a broad-scale legal effort to target pretty much everything China does as a matter of course, from genocide in Xinjiang to political repression in Hong Kong to forced labor in unfair state financing. The only thing I can think of that would piss Beijing off more than the United States providing Taiwan with all the vaccine it needs would be if an American cabinet secretary accompanied the delivery. Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin would be a delightfully inflammatory choice. The European Union. The EU's vaccination effort to this point has been a disaster. In part, it is bad luck. Unlike the US or Canada or the UK, most of the formulas the continental Europeans backed didn't work out. In part, it is a bad approach. The EU started its negotiations with would-be manufacturers late, and the Euros made price haggling their top priority. So Europe is at the back of the line when it comes to deliveries. In part, it was bad politics. The European Commission briefly and extraordinarily stupidly threatened border and trade relations with countries that have had better vaccination planning. But mostly it is simply that Europe didn't have any health capacity at the EU level. And so it is literally making everything up as it goes. And so the rest of the world is pulling ahead. Post-Brexit UK is nearly the best in the world with vaccinations, which is galling enough to the Europeans, but economically devastated and strategically isolated Serbia has already vaccinated 20% of its population. The top-in-class EU country, Denmark, is barely half that far. As a Europhile, I find it disheartening not only how badly the EU is doing, but how quickly EU members of all wealth levels are losing faith. Hungary, Austria, and Denmark have opted to stop waiting for the EU to get its act together, and so have entered separate agreements with Russia and Israel. The Netherlands, Sweden, Finland, and Poland are likely to follow similar paths. These disconnects provide a wealth of options for the Biden administration. It could attempt a straight-up vaccines for NATO program in an effort to achieve with honey what Trump attempted with vinegar, getting the Europeans to take their security seriously and actually commit financial resources to their own defense. It could trade hundreds of millions of doses to the EU in exchange for broad-scale trade concessions from the entire bloc. Aerospace and agriculture are two particularly sticky logjams that could benefit the vaccine-related lubrication. It could bypass the EU and NATO completely and instead choose to target specific strategic partners in order to lock down long-term security agreements. Italy and Spain come to mind, to the detriment of any European defense planning. It could trade vaccines for following the American lead against all things China. Say goodbye to the EU's recent investment bilateral with Beijing. It could provide the doses to the United Kingdom to distribute to Europe as London sees fit, an act which would reduce any bad PR to first derivative effects and give the United States a leg up in post-Brexit trade talks with the Brits. It could toss enough vaccine into Germany's lap to inoculate the German population, but allow Berlin to decide how to distribute the doses. If the doses go to Germans, the EU would politically implode. But if the Germans distribute them to Europe, the German government would fall. Best yet, the United States is likely to have so many doses by the fourth quarter, it could attempt multiple options. All right. Here you go. Peter Zion on vaccine diplomacy. Don't look at this URL. This is like a MailChimp monstrosity, I think. If you just Google it. Zion on geopolitics. All righty. What do we got? Back. Okay, not much. I live in Montreal, Quebec. KMO, could you please read something to us? Yeah. I've been watching Daniel Naroditsky's YouTube channel. He is a chess grandmaster and is training someone, so he does videos where he coaches him as the trainee plays. Oh, nice. My daughter just got back from her walk. She walked on a frozen lake. That's a lovely thing to do. Dangerous when the temperature gets up where it is now here, but I don't know. What's your temperature there? I don't know if my prejudice makes me perceive him as snobby or if he actually is a little douchey, but very well spoken and smart. Definitely likes making sentences. If you're talking about Peter Zion, I'm pretty much doing an impression of him as I read it. He is snarky, to be sure. March 3rd, I turned 32 today. Hey, happy birthday, Ben Rubber. 32. I turned 32 in the year 2000. It's the year my first son was born. Happy birthday, Ben Rubber, says Ed. I talked to an Israeli guy in Zello today. We talked about the Defense Production Act order to Merck, ordering them to help produce the J&J vaccine. Please say niggling logistical issues 5 times fast. I will not, but I understand a trap when I see one laid. This Five Eyes section calls to mind the concept of the functioning core from the book The Pentagon's New Map. Oh, I don't know of this book. Pentagon's New Map. All right, there we are. Let's skip over Amazon and go to Goodreads, an Amazon-owned company. Oh, well, it's not on the first page, so we'll just go to Amazon. 23,000 search results, 23 million search results, and I cannot be bothered to look past the first page because I'm human. The Pentagon's New Map, War and Peace in the 21st Century by Thomas P.M. Barnett. I heard of him? I don't think so. Here's him. Senior Managing Director at Entera Solutions, contributing editor, Esquire Magazine, columnist, World Politics Review, blogger, Thomas P.M. Barnett's Globalization, contributor, Esquire.com's The Politics blog. Public speaker, yeah. Education, don't care. Books. Great Powers, America and the World After Bush. The Blueprint for Action, A Future Worth Creating. The Pentagon's New Map. Oh, wow, so this is from 2004? This is a 17-year-old book? Ed, don't you know it's not worth reading anything that's more than 10 minutes old? Romanian and East German Policies in the Third World. So I would be interested in just finding an interview or something with this guy. Here, I'll follow him on Amazon. All right, closing the tab. Ed says, I think we need to study the concept of first derivative and second derivative. He used the former term. Yeah, I think he was talking about if the U.S. just gives a whole bunch of vaccine to the U.K. and says distribute this as you see fit, and the U.K. pisses people off in their choices, the people who are pissed off will mostly be pissed off at the UK. But there'll be a little spillover, a little, derivative pissed offedness at the US for giving the doses to the UK to start with. But the UK gets the brunt. That's how I took that. All right. Time to read. I just read. Time to draw. Unless somebody gives me something right now that you want to hear read that's reasonably short. Look at Zero Hedge real quick. Warning, the bond market is starting to blow up again. Biden slams Neanderthal thinking. Republicans over Texas, Mississippi COVID policy. Embarrassed, Cuomo says, I'm very sorry, but I'm not resigning. Fuck you. We are witnessing a last-minute mass exodus before... we are. It's not a question, it's a statement. We are witnessing a last-minute mass exodus before the final collapse of our major cities. All right. That has tickled my fancy. Let's check it out. By Tyler Durden, of course it is. All right. Authored by Michael Snyder via the Economic Collapse blog. Americans fled the big cities in droves in 2020. One recent survey discovered that even more Americans are planning to move in 2021. The corporate media is attempting to frame this mass exodus as a temporary phenomenon, but there is nothing temporary about it. Millions upon millions of people can see that our society is literally melting down all around us, and they want to get somewhere safe while they still can. In recent weeks, I have written articles about the specific problems that we are witnessing in Chicago and San Francisco, but the truth is that virtually all of our major cities are coming apart at the seams, and this is motivating more people than ever to seek greener pastures. With so many Americans looking to move, this has pushed up home prices in desirable suburban and rural areas to insane heights. In fact, in some parts of the country, it is difficult to find a decent home for sale at all. In Bozeman, Montana and Idaho were already going gangbusters with people moving there. But anyway, in Bozeman, Montana, one man has actually resorted to walking around with a cardboard sign asking for someone to sell him a house. I'm just asking for someone to sell us a home. My sign says, please sell me a home, said Sean Hawksford, a Bozeman resident. This is not a homeless man that we are talking about. Sean Hawksford is a family man that owns a successful business, and he has been approved for a mortgage. He just can't find a house to buy. Build one. According to Hawksford, he has made 18 offers over the past 6 months, but none of them have been accepted. Yeah, I was watching a video about people moving to Idaho, which is a contiguous state to Montana, last night, and you can expect to pay 20% over the list price, is what the video author said. But back to the article. It's been about 6 months. We've made, I think, 18 offers now on different properties and haven't had one accepted yet. It's been a little bit tough with them. And all my first-time home buyers, to be honest with you, said Jeff Bent, a Hawksford realtor in Bozeman. I warned that this would happen. I warned that when things started to get crazy, many Americans wouldn't be able to move because there would be a crushing amount of demand for available houses as hordes of Americans suddenly sought to relocate. NBC News has used the term droves to describe the mass exodus that we witnessed last year. Americans fled big cities in droves to escape the coronavirus pandemic, and many of them are staying permanently or indefinitely. But escape means something different depending on whom you ask. We have never seen anything like this before in U.S. history. According to the Pew Research Center, about 1/5 of all Americans either moved or know someone who moved in 2020. A survey conducted by the Pew Research Center while the pandemic was in full swing in June 2020 found that approximately 1/5 of Americans moved or know someone who moved as a result of COVID-19. The reasons they gave for people moving were extremely varied, ranging from being called into active military duty, to college housing being closed down, to, of course, sudden financial constraints. The corporate media keeps trying to blame COVID for the mass migration, but now the COVID pandemic is fading and Americans are still moving in large numbers. In fact, one recent survey actually found that 20% more people are planning to move in 2021 than moved in 2020. If I was currently living in a major city on the East or West Coast, I would be highly motivated to move too. For example, just check out what is happening in Los Angeles. Los Angeles, the state's largest city and arguably the most populous now in the United States, has become a byword for violent crime, and especially the stronghold of enormous, ultra-violent, and rapidly growing MS-13 organization. Routinely mislabeled as a mere gang in media reports, MS-13 has up to 50,000 members worldwide, of whom at least 10,000 officially, and probably twice as many according to the private assessments of many police officers, are in L.A. Jeremiah Babe recently went into the wealthy areas of downtown Los Angeles, and the footage that he captured was mind-blowing. Well, I can't play it here, but I'll watch it later. LA has never looked like this and is getting worse with each passing day. Of course, many would argue that San Francisco is in even worse shape. San Francisco, America's anything-goes city, is in even worse shape. Its most famous, historically popular, and beautiful, stylish locations are now swamped with aggressive, unsanitary street people who openly urinate and defecate in the streets. Public services, long superb, are now appalling. For much more on the tragedy that is playing out in that once beautiful city, please see my previous article entitled "The Reason Why a Lot of People Are Leaving San Francisco Might Surprise You." Of course, it isn't just individuals that are moving. In recent months, we have seen large numbers of businesses choose to relocate. At one point, Tesla CEO Elon Musk made headlines all over the globe when he decided that it was time to leave California for good. Tesla CEO Elon Musk has left California and is now a resident of Texas. In an interview with the Wall Street Journal on Tuesday, Musk said that the move made sense amid plans underway for a new Tesla factory in the Austin area. I certainly can't blame him. What rational person would choose California over Texas at this point? On the East Coast, hordes of businesses have left New York as well. If you can believe it, even the New York Stock Exchange is thinking of leaving. The head of the world's largest financial market, Stacey Cunningham, floated the idea of leaving New York in an opinion piece in the Wall Street Journal to avoid taxes. When people think of Florida, they often picture restaurants and shopping, the kind of business you do on vacation. But more and more people are choosing to move down to the Sunshine State because there's no income tax and the cost of living is low. Perhaps they will need to rename it the Florida Stock Exchange if they actually pull the trigger on such a move. Sadly, when things get really bad in this nation, no part of the country will be fully immune. We will all feel the pain and the suffering will be off the charts. But if you do feel motivated to relocate, I would do it as soon as possible, because later this year global events will start accelerating at a very rapid pace. What do we got here? I will send a link to an image, says Ed, of functioning core. I'm skeptical of the house price thing, says Jim D. Functioning core, non-integrated gap. I think it is outdated now with the rise of China. Work across core to improve ability to withstand and mitigate 9/11-like system perturbations. Preserving the core to grow the core. Discreetly firewall off core from gap's worst exports. Pandemics, narcotics, terror. Wow. Interesting that South Africa is not in the gap. And maybe there's an itty-bitty tiny little circle around Singapore. I don't know. Shrink the gap by exporting security to worst security sinkholes located there. When necessary equals regime change plus nation building. Screw that. Employing forces optimized for both efforts. 0, says me. Daniel Poole, welcome aboard. The end is always just over the horizon, according to Zero Hedge. Yes, indeed. Although this is something they've snagged from somebody's blog. What is it, Economic Collapse blog? Yeah, the Economics Collapse blog. Are you prepared for the coming economic collapse and the new Great Depression? Yeah. So are you selling silver or Bitcoin? What's your panacea for the coming Great Depression? Ooh, prophecyhour.com. Oh, and nutraceuticals are never far from the doomsayers. Good vibration, quality rife machines since 1987. Making sense of Revelation, a verse-by-verse lithophane? I don't know that word. Let's check that out. Porcelain impressed with figures that are made distinct by transmitted light. Huh. There's a Zarathustra lithophane. If it ever loads. $90. I don't think so. Speak on, Zarathustra. Realtors will do anything to hype sales. Okay. I can't play it, but maybe I can just post a link. Let's see. Unboxing Idaho. All right. All right, everybody. I can't play this for you, but check this out. All right, now I do have to draw. I'm off to do some gig work. Thank you for this hour of conviviality. Good luck, Ed. Drive safe. Be well. See you later. Okay. Just going over to the other screen. I got to draw. So talk amongst yourselves. If anybody wants to, I'll start a Zoom call, but I can't promise to be a major participant in the conversation. Let's see. Yoke. Oh, I've been reading so long, my tabmate has turned itself off. Yeah. That's not it. No, wrong layer. It's my mantra. Wrong layer. There we are. Right. Turn yolk. Lovely. That is all too fat. All right. What are you up to today, Jim? Procrastination at the moment. I'm a master at that. Let me tell you. I submitted an invoice today for my comic work for the past month, and it comes to less than I need to pay my rent. So I'm going to have to do a bunch of work the next couple of weeks and submit an invoice in the middle of the month, something I don't normally do. All right, let's go down a little. I too should be productive, but am not. Reminds me, I need to re-up my Vault membership. Huh. Oh, I had forgotten about your annual around tax time ritual. Tax time's not for another month. I look forward to reading the handwritten. Is it usually handwritten or is it typed? I just know it's on paper. You type it though, don't you? Yeah, you do. You type it. But your annual donation comes with a letter for me to read, which is sometimes the only handwritten letter I get that year, other than Christmas cards. And this past year, I think I only got 2 Christmas cards, one of which was from my mother. What have I done? Just spring bank account cleaning. My bank account is sparkling, shining with cleanliness. New plumbing is also in the summer cards. The old stuff is rusted away, 80 years old. Damn. Okay. There's a problem there. Jim, were you around for the reading of the Peter Zion vaccine diplomacy piece? Okay. Went 2 weeks during Christmas with no hot water before we found an unsick plumber. Half of the piece. Interesting. I will forward it to you. All right. It will be in your email inbox in seconds. Yeah. I think the differences between Biden and Trump diplomacy are going to be superficial unless Biden gets really, habitual with the dropping of bombs, in which case it's going to be much more militaristic than the Trump foreign policy. But as Zion says, all of our last 5 presidents have basically just been enacting the lack of enthusiasm from the American populace for international cooperation, nation building. I know the flag wavers were really enthusiastic about all the wars for a time after 9/11, but that has worn off. Nope. Yep. Okay. New messages. Too many ex-vets engaging in open public defecation. Not here, but I imagine in Seattle and San Francisco and Los Angeles. Not out of protest, but necessity. Did you check out the new Neo-Feudalism podcast? Are you the one who turned me on to the What's Left podcast where they had Joel Kotkin as a guest? I did listen to that, and I'm most of the way through the audiobook version of the coming Neo-Feudalism. No, you sent it to me, duh. Library doesn't have that book of his pity. Oh, pardon me. All right. So we lost Ben a Rubber too. And Daniel. Not that. Okay, maybe I've gone overboard on the nose. I want her to have a not cutesy nose. There we go. That's a little better. Okay. Derek. Derek's actually okay, I think. Maybe you need to move him a little closer to the center. Yeah. What do we got? What do we got? Worth a read? Well, it's worth a listen. Definitely worth a listen. I don't know that I would have gotten through it. I certainly wouldn't have gotten through this much of it were I reading it. Yep, still here, says Daniel. Jim says they're probably checking out the vid you dropped on the chat. Could be. Could be. Hope so. That video required too much of my attention. Well, yeah. A few comments here and there from KMO don't distract me too badly, but it is working. It is like working in the same room as somebody. Yep, multitasking is for idiots. Or people with different brain architecture than mine. I can't do it. I can't either. Most males cannot. Even the young ones who think they cannot. Douglas Rushkoff did an episode of Frontline on that topic called Generation Tech, about how young people for the most part, are multitasking all day long, always looking at screens, and they think they're good at it, and they're not. Their attention is markedly, measurably, and considerably degraded in their efforts. All right. Yoke Inc. What am I doing? What am I doing? Brains architecture. Yeah, I saw that. Interesting. That was from many years ago. When was that? Let's see. Generation Tech. Rushkoff. Frontline. Came out when I was in New York, I think. Or Generation Like. That was it. Generation Like. I don't want the transcript. Just tell me when it came out. How about Wikipedia? List of Frontline American TV program episodes. Wow. Oh, they're not listed by title. Oh, yeah, they are. Okay. Well, let's search for like. Here it is, Generation Like. 2014. All right. That answers that question. That's not black, is it? Nope, it's not. All right. Whoa, what am I doing? The distant sound of toxic masculinity. A phrase I'm not fond of, but there are certain people who do exemplify it. And there's a lot of them around here. Sorry, but things are too soothing around here. Here in the stream or there in your actual physical location. I'm going to crash for a bit. Well, I'm almost done here anyway. I've only got 26 minutes left in this thing. Later, Jim. All right. Now, let's go back to... Let's get rid of that. See some sketchy stuff. Where's that? Ooh, turn it off. There we go. That one we can just delete. My road is the same. It is relatively new and wide without much cop presence, so people like to race on it. Sometimes I see them in the ditch where it abruptly ends. A little bit of justice. A little bit of justice. Oh. Daniel, what part of the world are you in? All right. Texas, Austin. All right. You are super cool then. All the cool people are leaving California. All the smart people are leaving California and going to Texas or Idaho or Montana. That's going to be a recurring gag in the next, well, in this chapter of Geb, because they're going to California. They're going to talk to so many people, and they're going to be asking about other people, and it's always going to be the same. Oh yeah, he moved to Texas, or no, she moved to Texas. Glad you noticed. What? That Austin is super cool. I have not been to Austin since might have been 1999. Yeah, I think that's probably right. Damn. That was 22 years ago. I bet it's changed a bit since then. All right. Huh. Nope. Wrong there. Housing prices here are awful. Oh, I don't doubt it. Long time. Austin has changed a lot, I bet. Actually, I've been there more recently than that. I was there in 2008. That's where I first met Jim Kunstler face to face. It was in Austin, Texas. So 2008, 13 years ago. Still nice, but definitely has developed a bit of a Bay Area feel. Lots of tech companies and cost of living has gone way up. Looks like Miami's trying to become the new Silicon Valley. Anybody heard about that? Here, I'll read some more. What the heck? Now that Jim's gone. Let's see. Let us search. Let's see. Silicon Valley, Florida. Google gave me a driving directions. It's a 43-hour drive. Miami won't be the next Silicon Valley because, okay, let's read about that. Actually, let's start with Forbes. Forget about San Francisco and Silicon Valley. Miami is planning on becoming the next great tech hub. This is by Jack Kelly, writing for Forbes. I write actionable interview, career, and salary advice. Listen to this article now. No, that'd get me in trouble. I'll just read it. Oh, 2 of 4 free articles. Okay, fine. San Francisco was awesome until it wasn't. Silicon Valley and San Francisco became the epicenter of the technology revolution that changed the world. Moving to San Francisco was like the gold rush all over again. It was the mecca for young people to earn their fortunes. They could find themselves the CEO of a fast-growing company going public and reap multi-millions or billions in a hot IPO. As time passed and greater numbers of fortune seekers arrived, the rents and home prices became exorbitant, and taxes relentlessly increased. As the costs rose, the quality of life deteriorated. Commuting was miserable. The streets were dirty, and residents had to deal with a frightening level of crime and open drug usage. Residents could deal with it all until the pandemic hit. Then they were left with all the bad stuff, stuck in a cramped, overpriced apartment and unable to avail themselves of all the amenities, cultural events, restaurants, concerts, and nightlife that the city used to offer. Slowly, then suddenly, people started leaving. The first wave of high-profile people and companies departing California included Elon Musk, the wealthiest man in the world for a brief moment, supplanting Jeff Bezos. Musk, the CEO of Tesla, grew weary of fighting petty political bureaucrats and jumping through oppressive regulatory hoops. Musk told the Wall Street Journal, "For myself, yes, I have moved to Texas." He continued, "We've got the Starship development here in South Texas, where I am right now. We've got big factory developments just outside Austin for Giga Texas as well." Look at that. Out on the pad in South Texas. The New York Times reported, California, with its steep housing costs, raging wildfires, and strict business regulations, has been losing residents to other states, with Texas as the most popular exodus destination. Of more than 653,000 people who left California last year, about 82,000 went to Texas, more than any other state, according to census figures. Hewlett-Packard, the eponymously named company of the 2 original founders and grandfathers of Silicon Valley, who started their company in a Palo Alto garage back in 1939, will relocate its headquarters to San Jose, California. From San Jose, California to Houston. Coincidentally, Drew Houston, the CEO of Dropbox, said the company is moving to Austin. Oracle, led by billionaire Larry Ellison, moved its headquarters to Austin because of California's high tax rate, exorbitant living costs, and the ability to have remote workers. After a while, Miami, seemingly out of nowhere, started capturing the attention of the California tech migrants. Venture capitalist Delian Asparuhov, I don't know how to pronounce that, may have started a relocation movement from Silicon Valley to Miami in a tweet, writing, "Okay guys, hear me out. What if we moved Silicon Valley to Miami?" Francis Suarez, the Republican mayor of Miami, answered back, "How can I help?" The tweet got 2.3 million impressions, Suarez said. "It was organic, it struck a nerve, lightning in a bottle." Since the initial tweets, Suarez has been actively courting top-tier tech executives. He has communicated with Elon Musk, Twitter CEO Jack Dorsey, from Google CEO Eric Schmidt, and Peter Thiel, the chairman of Palantir. The mayor is on a charm offensive. Suarez is hyping the fact that Miami will offer a business-friendly environment and be responsive to the needs of the incoming tech companies. Suarez, to demonstrate his sincerity, promises to hire the city's first technology officer to provide concierge services to the companies once based in Miami. This is part of a strategy to show that they want to help companies while California doesn't show them the love and attention, except when it comes to raising taxes. It's likely that we'll see this story playing out all across the country. Unless city and state elected politicians make changes, the flight out of high-taxed, expensive cities will continue unabated. As corporations and well-paid white-collar workers leave, the cities will bear the brunt of plummeting tax revenue. The decline will force mayors to drastically cut costs. This will include massive layoffs of teachers, police officers, firefighters, garbage collectors, and other municipal workers. With less services, the cities become dirtier, crime increases, and living conditions worsen. This will prompt even more people to move. A cascading downward spiral could occur, making places like San Francisco dangerous and inhospitable, and still unaffordable. The absence of a state income tax, plus warm weather and a business-friendly mindset, has already prompted hedge fund billionaires and native New Yorkers Paul Singer and Carl Icahn to relocate their respective businesses to Florida. Leon Cooperman, the billionaire former hedge fund manager and CEO of Goldman Sachs Asset Management, previously moved to Florida. He said of his move, "I suspect Florida will soon rival New York as a financial hub, due in part to the tax and spend policies of New York." A number of bankers told their bosses, Ken Moelis, the CEO of his eponymous investment bank Moelis, that they wanted to leave New York City for Florida. In response to their request, Moelis replied, "We're a talent business. I want to attract, I want to motivate, I want to retain the greatest talent in the world. And if that talent wants to do it in Florida, that's where we'll support them." Moelis, according to a Bloomberg interview, will consider opening or expanding offices as his employees decide to relocate to cities where tax rates are lower, the climate is warmer, and the government is friendly to business. Charles Gasparino, the longtime chronicler of Wall Street, wrote in the New York Post, "Many other banks and financial businesses are now seeking to move out of the once friendly confines of New York City, which isn't so friendly anymore," he added, "The trend has been a slow burn over the past 2 decades, but now has kicked into high gear thanks to COVID-19, spiraling costs, and a feckless political class that runs this city and state." Gasparino said about JP Morgan CEO Jamie Dimon, I am told, vetoed a plan several years back to move a swath of the bank to South Florida because he didn't think the schools were good enough. Now he appears to have changed his mind and is considering plenty of relocations outside New York City. Forward-looking places like Miami that have business-friendly mayors like Suarez, low taxes and incentives for people to move, including beautiful warm weather and beaches, will see their cities flourish. All right, not a mention of the rising sea level, though. It seems like becoming the next Silicon Valley isn't so good for people in the area unless they are in tech. Well, I mean, if you own a home there, your property values skyrocket, but so do your property taxes. So, you sell and you find a cheaper place to live. A lot of people at work today are glued to the SpaceX live stream of a test launch. Oh, cool. Tech, gentrifying Austin one giant campus at a time. Alrighty, ready. So, as I recall, there was another article that looked promising. Ah, yes. Can tech bros from Silicon Valley survive Miami, Florida? How about that? Oh, how about this one? Why Miami is the next hot tech hub. No, that's not what I was looking for. I'm looking for a contrary voice on this issue now. How about this one? Business Insider, how Silicon Valley exodus relates to ongoing culture wars. Come on, open. Silicon Valley elites are fleeing the region for states like Texas and Florida, but that shouldn't be surprising. It's the culmination of a culture clash that has been brewing in the tech industry for years. Analysis. Since the onset of the pandemic, tech's elite and major firms like HP and Oracle have begun moving out of the Bay Area. Sign up for notifications from Insider. What you want to know. No, thank you. Palantir, Oracle, and HP have all moved their headquarters to other states, and Elon Musk, Drew Houston, Larry Ellison, and Keith Rabois have all decided to leave for cities like Austin and Miami. While the exodus might seem sudden, it's the direct result of a culture clash that's been simmering below the surface for years. It dates back at least 2017, when Oculus co-founder Palmer Luckey was ousted at Facebook over the news that he was financing an anti-Hillary Clinton meme group. That same year, Google engineer James Damore was fired after he wrote an anti-diversity memo. It was not an anti-diversity memo. That's lame. Both situations highlighted a growing population of tech workers fed up with the region's culture. Now, more than 3 years later, the pandemic seems to have freed those who feel frustrated by Silicon Valley's culture to leave the area for good. The Silicon Valley exodus is real. Since the onset of the pandemic, billionaires, venture capitalists, and even major tech firms like HP and Oracle have started to flee the Bay Area. What at first seemed like a one-off response to our new remote work reality has become a trend. Tech's elite are leaving, and they're citing a mixture of high taxes, state regulations, and a homogenous liberal culture as their reasons for decamping to Texas, Colorado, or Florida. While the departures of Elon Musk, Larry Ellison, and Keith Rabois are new, the reasons that seem to have nudged them out the door date back years. The pandemic may have spurred a migration away from the West Coast, but the writing has been on the wall for as far back as 2017. Now, as we approach 2021, it seems that a long-simmering culture clash is finally coming to a head. The onset of the so-called culture wars. While it's likely that facets of Silicon Valley's culture had been starting to splinter for several years prior to 2017, the most public instance of a culture clash coincides roughly with the beginning of President Donald Trump's presidency. In September 2016, Palmer Luckey, then the 24-year-old millionaire co-founder of virtual reality company Oculus, was discovered to be the main benefactor behind an anti-Hillary Clinton meme group. By that point, Luckey had already sold Oculus to Facebook for $2 billion and launched the Oculus Rift, the company's first major product. According to reporting by the Daily Beast, Luckey had been financing a group called Nimble America, which described itself online as having proven that shitposting is powerful and meme magic is real. The group had to put up a billboard in Pittsburgh with Clinton's face that read, "Too big to jail." Luckey told the Daily Beast at the time that funding the group sounded like a really jolly good time. After the report came out, several female employees resigned from Facebook in protest, and Luckey stayed out of the spotlight at Oculus events. By March 2017, he left Facebook. In subsequent interviews, Luckey said he was fired. Luckey's departure, well, he's got $2 billion in the bank, so it's not like he needed the money. Luckey's departure was viewed by some as a politically motivated firing. In 2018, Senator Ted Cruz asked Facebook CEO Mark Zuckerberg during a Senate hearing why Luckey was fired, implying it was over his politics, which Zuckerberg denied. While that was the first and most public instance of ideological differences becoming a sticking point in Silicon Valley, it wasn't the last. The same year, Google engineer James Damore made headlines for writing a manifesto that spread like wildfire through Google's ranks. Damore argued that the search giant shouldn't be aiming to increase racial and gender diversity among its employees. No, he did not. I read the thing. He did not argue that. Anyway, I'm going to skip the whole Damore thing, as it's clearly, they cannot even begin to address that truthfully. The memo resulted in Damore's firing, but it also sparked a groundswell of support among white male engineers at Google who felt that conversations about diversity were offensive to white. No, that is such bullshit. Skipping all that. Both Luckey and Damore ended up without a job. But the reactions to their situations and the support they both received highlighted that there was a growing population of tech workers fed up with the region's culture. At the time, Business Insider's Steve Kovach argued that Silicon Valley's liberal bubble had burst and that the culture wars had begun. More than 3 years later, it seems as though that undercurrent of dissatisfaction is coinciding with the secondary effects of the coronavirus pandemic. In years past, those who felt disgruntled, overruled, or otherwise disenfranchised by Silicon Valley's predominantly liberal culture had few options. They could leave, of course, but the tech world was still firmly rooted in the Bay Area. Those who wanted a career in tech still felt they needed to put up with skyrocketing rents and hours-long commutes. But when offices shut down and major tech companies asked their employees to work remotely, there was no longer as strong a tether to the Bay Area. Some companies like Twitter and Slack freed their workers to live wherever they wanted with no expectation to ever return to their San Francisco offices. Others, like Facebook, have said employees may work remotely forever with manager approval. These decisions seem to have encouraged a larger shift among Silicon Valley's elite. Palantir, has moved its headquarters to Colorado, and HP and Oracle moved to Texas. Palantir CEO Alex Karp told Axios in May that the company wanted to move away from the West Coast and described what he saw as an increasing intolerance and monoculture in the tech industry. Karp, for his part, has been living in New Hampshire for much of the pandemic. Since then, venture capitalist Joe Lonsdale, Dropbox CEO Drew Houston, and Tesla and SpaceX CEO Elon Musk have moved to Austin. Lonsdale tweeted that the region was more tolerant of ideological diversity, and Musk made the move after warring with California over the state's coronavirus lockdown measures. Once billionaire Larry Ellison has left the region for Lanai, don't know where that is, the island he mostly owns on Hawaii, well, there it is, and investor Keith Raboy is decamping for Miami, citing high taxes in San Francisco and a political culture he abhors as his reason for leaving. And of course, all of these moves will follow venture capitalist and PayPal founder Peter Thiel's famous departure for Los Angeles in 2018, a move seemingly spurred by his dislike of Silicon Valley's liberal ideology. Notably, Lonsdale, Musk, Raboy, and Karp all have ties to Thiel and PayPal, and Ellison is close friends with Musk and sits on Tesla's board. So while the wave of departures from arguably the most famous tech hub in the world are, for better or worse, being spurred by the pandemic, the exodus didn't begin out of the blue. It's a direct result of political and ideological differences that have been building just below the surface for years. All right. So Daniel, writing of Austin, says, still nice, but definitely has developed a bit of Bay Area feel. Lots of tech companies and cost of living has gone way up. It seems like becoming the next Silicon Valley isn't so good for... Yeah, I read that. A lot of people at work today are glued. Yes, great. And tech, gentrifying Austin one giant campus at a time. That's all stuff I'd read before. Okay. Well, it is 4:58 p.m. I'm going to call a lid. Just as my fitness band tells me I've been sitting too long. So, over to OBS. I'm going to stop streaming. I'll be back tomorrow. I hope to